Welcome to this programming tutorial. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do string handling. This is part of the data manipulation part of the course. String handling is just the process of manipulating alphanumeric, in other words, letters, numbers, and symbols data in a string. It's a really useful skill to have as a programmer. Let's grab ourselves a string, and we'll set this to computer science as the best. Now, let's look at how we can manipulate this string. There's a couple of things we can do. We can return the length of a string. We can return the index of a character in the string or a word. We can convert the string to uppercase. We can convert to lowercase, or we can grab a substring. We'll go through that a little bit later. Let's start with length. What does length do? Length returns or gives back, if you want to say it that way, the length of data. This is quite a long string. We could count every single character, or we could use the len function or subroutine. Let's print len of string. What we're doing here is we're printing the length of my string. If I run the program, I get 29 because there are 29 characters in this string. Remember, we include the spaces as one character. Next, we look at index. We said in the previous lesson that a string is just a list of characters. In other words, it's either two or more characters put together. This means every value in the string has its own index. An index is the position of data within something. So let's look at what the positions mean. C in this example would be position 0. O would be position 1, M would be position 2, P would be position 3, U would be position 4, and so on. I'll do the first couple of characters. These are the indexes, and remember, in computer science, we start counting at 0. So how can this be useful to us? Well, I can print the index of O in my string. Before I explain this, let's run it and see what it produces. There we go. It produces 1. Let's comment out this line over here so it doesn't appear inside the console. If I run it again, we get 1. This is because O is in position 1 of the string. If I put lowercase c and I run it, I get 10 because lowercase c is the 10th character in this string. Note the index subroutine gets the first instance of the character. It won't do this one. Now, why is this written like this instead of written like this, like we're used to with print or inputs or other subroutines? Well, this is because this subroutine is a bit special. This subroutine over here is applying an action to the string. This little dot means to apply to. We are applying an index of C search to our string, and that's why it's got this little dot here. There are more advanced explanations of this, but for now, just think of it like that. The cool thing about index is we can also specify a word. For example, if I put science, we know that science starts in the 9th character of the string. So it's a good way to find the first instance of a word. Next up, we have converting to uppercase. This is quite useful if you want to compare the characters in a string, but you want to ignore the fact that some might be lowercase and some might be uppercase. It's a very easy one to do, and like before, we are applying the uppercase action to our string. So we're going to use upper here with nothing in the brackets. Funnily enough, it's the exact same thing with lowercase, except instead of upper, we use lower. If I run this, you can see the first one is all capitals, and the second one is all lowercase. Quite a useful skill to have. The last one is the substring. The substring is a method you can use, or a way you can get a section or cut out a section of a string. Let's look at an example. Let's say I want to cut out the word put or put. I know that this starts on the third character. I know that it ends on the fifth character. So how do we write this? A substring uses two square brackets to specify the position of the character. There are three different things that I can add into this brackets: a starting position or a start index, an end position or end index, and, like with our range subroutine, how much we step up by. So let's look at how we can use this. Let's say, for example, that I want to start at 0, 1, 2, 3, the third character of the string, and I want to finish just before 6. Remember, this is like the range subroutine. We finish just before this number. And then step, we're going to go up by 1. If I print this, or if I run this program, I get puts. Because I start at 3, I run until it's just before 6, and I'm going up 1 at a time. Let's modify this slightly. Let's start at 0, we'll go all the way till 10, and this time we're going to go up by 2 each time. So I get every second character from 0 to 10. Isn't that cool? Now, if you don't specify the last parameter, this will be 0 to 10, but it'll go up by 1 every time as a default. There we go. And if you just specify with nothing, you're just going to get the single character, like C. Or if I put 3, I'll get P. Isn't that cool? Now, one of the things you can do as well with substrings is you can use negative numbers. For example, if I do starting at -1, -5, and -1, this means that we start at the last position. So when we use a negative value in our substring, it's telling the program that we're going to start from the last item, which is going to be this exclamation mark. Now, why is the last item 0 if we want to run backwards? Well, because 0 is already being used for our first character. So Python uses -1 to represent the last one. Then we're going to stop at 5 characters from the right, and we're going to subtract 1 each time. So we should start here and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Notice that it writes it backwards. This is quite cool because I can specify -1 like this. If I put -1 here, this will have a default value of the end of the string. It'll have the characters up to the first index. So it's going to run from the end all the way down to the first one. And we'll end up with a reversed version of the sentence. If I put -2, I'll have the reversed version of it, but every second character. You can also do this the opposite way. If I have a positive number here, it'll go from the start all the way to the end. And if I put 2, it'll go from the start all the way to the end, about every second character. So these are a couple of shortcuts you can use. But just remember the important one. : :-1 will reverse a string, because the default value will be the end of the string to the start of the string and subtracts 1 each time. The reason that it does at the end of the string is because Python recognizes the -1 over here and will automatically start at the end. If I had a positive number, Python would recognize that we have to start at the beginning. Now, let's look at building a program using some of these methods. One of the things we can create is something called pigLatin. pigLatin is when we add AY to the end of words with starting with a vowel, and move, sorry, not AY, WAY, and we add AY as well as the first letter to the end of a word if it is a consonant. So if it's a vowel and I have, for example, igloo, this will convert into igloo, like that. Whether you have the dash or not, it doesn't matter. if I have the word hello here, this will convert into elo a, or Elohe, should I say. Let's build a program that takes in user inputs and converts that word into Pig Latin. To get started, let's ask for user inputs. Let's say word. Inputs, enter a word. Now let's work out an answer. So what do I want to do to this word? I want to check first to see, let's say the answer is nothing. I want to check first to see the first letter is a consonant or a vowel. Now there are multiple ways to do this, but let me show you a cool shortcut you can do in Python. Let's set vowel, and let's set vowel as a string that could be A, E, I, O, U. And now we're going to say if the first letter of the word, how do we get the first letter of the word? Well, we can use a substring. We can either specify 0th to the first going up by 1, or as a shortcut, we can just put word 0. If word 0 in vowel, remember this in command that we've used before? We could say if this character is in this vowel, and if it is, so if this character is somewhere in here, then we know it's a vowel and we just have to add W-A-Y to it. So let's do answer equals the words concatenated with way at the end. Let's do elif word 0 not in vowel. I mean, you could also do else here as well. But if the character is not in vowel, then the answer is going to equal the words plus AY plus the first character of the word. Now we want to remove the first character from here. So what we can say here is we can say, right, start at 1, go to the end, and go up by 1. Or as a shortcut, you can just put this. For now, I'm going to leave it like this. If we leave the middle blank, because we're going positive 1, it's going to go until it reaches the end of the word, but it's going to start at character 1. There we go. So if I enter now a word, let's say we enter hello, I should actually print it out if you want to see it. So let's go after it and let's print out the answer. If I type it again, I get L-O-A-H. Ooh, I've done this the wrong way around. Let me fix that. Plus that, plus A-Y. Third time's a charm. Write hello, and we get Elohe. If I run the program again, and I write igloo, I get Iglooe. Now, this doesn't work if I have a capital H, because there's no capitals here. I could put capitals here like this, or I can use our newfound technique and do word 0 dot upper. Look at that. I've used 2 different string manipulation techniques in one. Let's do it here as well. And let's make sure that the first character of the word, if we move it to the end, is a lowercase letter. And let's make sure that the first character of the word turns into an uppercase letter. We don't have to do it for here. Well, we do actually, because sometimes the user will enter a word with a lowercase. So let's make this even more fancy. Let's say it's going to be word 0 dot upper plus the word from 1 stepping up by 1. So I'm ripping out the first character, making it uppercase, and then I'm getting every other character after it, just like what we do here, but in a different way. So now if I write hello, I get Elohe, but it looks like we've capitalized everything after it. Ah, I see what I've done wrong here. This is the wrong, I only want the first character. So we could make this a little bit more complicated, and we can do words 2 like that, or sorry, word 1, so get the first character of the new word and add it from the second character onwards plus the first character and then AY. And there we go, we get Elohe. If I add dot upper, I'll get my desired results, which is having the first letter capitalized. There we go. This is a very complicated way of doing it, but it gives you a nice understanding of how the string manipulations or the subroutines, the substrings work. I can be even more fancy and print the reversed version of the answer down here. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful.